Hello and welcome to Tomb Raider Underworld. And before I say anything, watch as I fail to collect the most irritating treasure in the entire game. Anyway, hello to everyone who's watching, and especially to those who've rather dedicatedly waited 2 years for this. Ah, there we go. It's been a while since my last set. I've been trapped in stasis, fighting off waves of aliens, like the hero that I am, and as a consequence, it's been simply impossible for me to do any other things. Anyway, spiders. I'm back, and I've decided that I should really finish this LP, so I shall. We are at the moment in Xibalba, the Mayan city of the dead, which is currently infested with spiders, and I discovered, actually quite recently, that this is a rather faithful rendition of the myth. The Mayan myth. And the myth in question is one of the myths that... Oh dear. Give him in the face! Did that much more elegantly. Now to clean up the small spiders. Anyway, Xibalba in these myths was originally gone to by a pair of young Mayan chaps called Han Hunahpu and Vukup Hunahpu. The reason why they have the same name is because they're brothers, but also I discovered that the Hun and the Vukup mean 1 and 7 respectively, which is to do with the Mayan habit of naming people on a sort of calendar basis. I still haven't quite gotten to the bottom of that. But the same is true of the laws of Xibalba, as I'll come to in a second. And these two fellows were engaged in Michael Jordan type activity on the road in front of Xibalba. They were slamming their balls around. And in fact, literally, not those kinds of balls, but balls in the sense of ball games. The Mayans, interestingly, had one particular ball game that they're describing here that involved rings, pads, and a rubber ball. And in this myth, the lords of Xibalba, Hun Kame and Vukup Kame, exactly the same scheme here, 1 and 7 respectively, extremely angry about this and sent 4 owls to confront these two brothers. And instead of saying, "You cursed kids, get off my lawn," what they actually ended up saying was, "Come to Xibalba, and you can entertain us with your great ball playing." And of course these two fellows knew that maybe this was a bit of a trap. So, against the better wishes of their mother, they went to Xibalba. And before they got to Xibalba, they were confronted. I think, is this the right way? I think I might have already done that one. We shall see. Yes, I think I've done white and blue. Yes, because I just collected the blue, didn't I? So I'll stay that one. So first they're confronted by a river of blood. And they get past this river of blood until they come to a crossroads. And the crossroads have 4 paths. And each of the paths have a different colour. In the original myth, the 4 paths are red, black, white and yellow. We've got white, yellow, red, but black seems to have been replaced with blue, I assume for colour theory reasons. So this is actually quite a nice throwback to the myth. What's even better is that when they actually get to Xibalba itself, they take the black path. They are confronted by what they believe to be the seated lords, like this. Now, the best part is that the Xibalbans, who are frankly dicks, set up a bunch of wooden carvings of themselves in order to confuse them. Well, pretty much actually, because literally they were just dicks. They did it in order to laugh at them. And that's what these are. These guys here are decoys. They don't do anything. They're purely there to troll the player. And that's exactly what the Xibalbans did. They set up these guys, and when the Hunahpus, Hun and Vukup, turned up, I'm sorry for my pronunciation of these, I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce them correctly, I've only ever read their names. So if you can, if you know how they should be pronounced, please forgive me. Have I done this one? Presumably so. I can't remember what stage I was at. I'll try this one, chimney. That leads to... which one are you? Yellow, why not? Some chimneying is in order. So they arrive at the Lords, and the Lords laugh at them for trying to talk to the wooden statues. And they say, here, there are 10 Lords of Zabalba. 2 big ones, Han and Vukub Kame, and 8 little ones. The little ones have different powers, almost all of them related to making people suffer in some way or another. Wait, no, I've got to go across here, haven't I? Yes, this is tricky. There we go. Behind, or whatever. And the Lords say, why don't you have a seat on this bench over here? Large stone bench. And they sit down and, oh, those japesters, this bench is actually a hot stone and they burn their bottoms. The Zabarbans, having had their jollies, then say, well, that's all well and good. We'll play with you in the morning. Because that was the theoretical purpose of them coming. Let's have a game. And so they are sent away to the House of Gloom, and there are 6 houses in Zabalba, which are described more thoroughly in a separate myth, but they are the House of Gloom, the House of Cold, the House of Fire, the House of Jaguars, the House of Bats, and the House of Knives or Razors. And the House of Gloom is a completely dark room. Oh, good lord. Well, frankly, I should pay more attention to that. These spiders seem to respawn every time I die. Camera, what are you doing? Anyway. And they get to this place and the attendants give them some cigars, oddly. I'm not sure how exactly what they're translating to get cigar, but it says in the version that I've read, cigar and sticks of pine. And they're told that they can't light the cigars or sticks of pine. For whatever reason. They have to return them in the morning in the form they were given them. Of course, they light them because it's dark. And in the morning, the Lords say, haha, you've fallen foul of our incredibly not particularly clever plot, and we get to kill you. Now, the 2 fellows get killed. And their ball stuff gets stored. And, sometime later, a maiden... and their bones are hung up on trees. And I like the idea that these pillars are meant to represent the bone trees because they have tons of skulls on them. Anyway, the head of this Shinapu fellow is placed there, and let's get onto that top of that one. I tried to make the jump directly last time, it was a bit silly. There we go. And this head is hung up on a calabash tree. And the idea is that his head turned into an exact facsimile of a calabash, so that they didn't know what it was. Sometime later, a young lady is walking along, and she spies this calabash, and it talks to her. It says, you are the lucky winner of the lottery, and you get to bear my children. And it spits on her. And this spittle onto her hand is enough to impregnate her, apparently. This is a sort of virgin-style birth situation. And she gives birth to 2 children. One called Hunapu and the other called something completely incomprehensible like Ex Bolanque. Now, I mentioned that there were 6 rooms in Zabalba. The 6 rooms are, as I mentioned, knives, blah, blah, blah. Now each of these 4 rooms in Tomb Raider Underworld I think is meant to represent one of the rooms. The room I started in right at the beginning of this LP I think was meant to be the room of darkness because it's dark. This room is the room of knives. And the idea of the room of knives in the story is that the knives moved all by themselves. So you will now see precisely what I'm referring to, because these don't seem to be knives. There are the knives moving by themselves. And we're all done. Aha! Goblet of Soma. And this is the yellow token. When I first did this part of the thing, I was actually a bit annoyed by the fact that that did not, to me, look like it was climbable. And when you jump there, she doesn't necessarily try and grab it. You have to actually kind of go onto this, and then aim and then jump off. It's a bit weird. I don't know. Anyway. So, sorry, yes, I was driving. And this young lady gets pregnant, and she gives birth to twins. And these twins are named Hunapu and Ex Balanque. I have, again, no idea how to pronounce a word starting with XB. But, and these 2 are looked after, well, not very well by their grandmother. And they actually rather mess everything up. They kill Han Hunapu's... Well, they don't kill them, they turn them into monkeys. And they then become sort of muses for poets and so on. and they generally troll their grandmother into the floor, until eventually they find their father's ball-playing gear, and they decide, what ho, we should play this game too, this looks like a frightful lark. And so they end up on the road to Xibalba, playing their noisy ball games, and sure enough, the Lords of Xibalba are once more annoyed. Instead of sending 4 owls this time, they send the message directly to the grandmother, who tries an extremely roundabout way of not telling them through a series of animals, which in the end fails. Particular spiders. Amazingly easy to use, sorry. You chaps get shots. These little spiders shouldn't irritate you. You can just knock them off you with the thing, but she has infinite ammo and perfect aim, so why not just shoot them? And after they eventually get this roundabout message from 4 different animals, all of which have eaten each other, they decide to turn up and say hello to the Lords of Xibalba. However, this time they're a little bit more intelligent than their forebears, and they know what's coming. So first they go down past, it's through the various ravines and streams, and through an area full of calabash trees. I don't believe I haven't managed to get something to that one in. I've got to get to red, the one I haven't done. Oh, I can push this into. Excellent. And they come to a river of corruption, which I believe is a river of pus. And I already use a Casey translated as pus, and I think it would be better if it was pus, because that would then give a tie-in to the Ita that comes up later. But anyway, they get past the river of corruption, and they come to the river of blood. The river of blood they get over. For some reason, their forebears not having any problem with it. They decide to get over it using their blowpipes. It's not exactly specified how, but presumably they stand on them and they float or something. I don't know. Wait, that's red, isn't it? So I've got to do yellow. There we go. And they come to the crossroads. And this time, instead of just walking straight in, they remember. Oh, I'm not actually sure how they're meant to know this. They talk to a mosquito called Xan, X-A-N. And they say to this mosquito, what we want you to do is we want you to go into Xibalba and sting all of the Lords of Xibalba. If I get it up here, I can't remember. Ah, there it is. So that's you. Get to you. And that's by you. Wait, is that there? Alright, so it's just up there, isn't it? Okay. So it's that. And it's you. Excellent, okay. And they send this mosquito out. And what the mosquito's job is to sting each of the Lords of Xibalba. And it stings the wooden ones to find out where they are. And then it stings each of the Lords in turn. And as every Lord is stung, he calls out the name of the other Lords. And they all call out each other's names and so on. So the mosquito reports back to the new twins, telling them telling them what their names are and which ones are fake. So they get to the Lords of Xibalba, and the Lords of Xibalba say, aha, you must address us. And they say, no, because those are actually just wooden statues and you can't trick us with that again, ha ha. The Lords, a little bit put out, say, well then why don't you take a seat on this bench? And they say, no, that isn't a bench. It's a sort of hot stone. Xibalbans, having had their extremely cunning plot foiled, are a little bit put out and say, well, that's fine. But before, we're going to play the ball game in the morning, so what we need to do first is you need to go into the House of Gloom. Now they know all about... That's what it is. They know all about the tricks involving pinewood. So when the porters hand them the cigar and the pinewood, they place a glowfly on the end of the cigar and red material on the end of the pine sticks, so that it looks like they've lit them. And the Xibalbans are chortling away. Oh, how they chortle. Ah, look at those fools, they've sealed their doom. And they turn up the next morning, complete with their cigars and sticks. The Xibalbans are a little bit put out by this. And they say, well then, let's just play a ball game. But let's use our ball. And their ball is basically a piece of rubber stuck full of razor blades. And remember I mentioned how there was a fire room? A house of fire? This is the House of Fire. And so they escape the gloom room. The gloom room, I like it. Each of these are timed, it's sort of a time puzzle. Oops. Oh dear, that was terrible. I really haven't done this in a while. Anyway, and you go out of the gloom room and they do their thing. Let's get here. Grab onto you. As you can see, there's a treasure up there, so I'm going to collect that now. I wouldn't have thought this would be a very good idea given how heat rises, but whatever. to multitask is fairly limited. There we go. Anyway, and having been a little bit put out, they play the ball game with their real ball, and they draw with the Zabarbans, and the Zabarbans are extremely put out by this. Oh, I'm going to get flamed. I'm going to stand over here. Maybe conducting on these. Ha-ha! Nice dismount. Here's the red. Anyway, as each day they're sent to a different part of the, to a different trap room. Next they're sent to the razor room. But they tell the knives that the knives should go after animals instead, and the knives seem to be okay with this. It seems to be sentient knives in this myth. And they've also been asked by the Lords of Zabarba to collect 4 different kinds of flour, so they get leafcutter ants to do it, which I think is rather nice. Let's jump this. There we go. Nice little bit of unnecessary gymnastics. Oh wait, did I smash the treasure here? I did. Did I? Good. I can't remember if there was one or not. And then they're sent to the bat room. And this time, in the list of doing weird, strange things with their blowguns, because every morning they're playing the Zabarbans and drawing, and every night the Zabarbans send them to a different room. And in the bat room, there's a large sort of bat god called the Camazots, which is extremely bad news for all concerned. And they decide to hide in their blow dart gun somehow. So they're sitting in this blow dart gun, and Hunapu, not Exbalanque, but Hunapu, those names, I'm sorry for the pronunciation here, decides to poke his head out and see what's going on. He pokes his head out and is immediately decapitated by Camazots, who then takes his head back to the Lords of Zabarba and says, "Haha, look, I've got one of their heads." They then put it up over the court. Doors opening, so we're now free to go. When I stand over here, the rollers in the ground run up the grooved backs. It's all very nice and mechanical. And he's decapitated. So it's got a long... The story is rather long, but they reconstitute a head for him using a turtle and various bits and pieces. Then they trick the Zabarbans into chasing the rubber ball, or at least Exbalanque does, and they reclaim the real head and switch it with the old one. I can't remember how many treasures there are down here. Probably quite a few. I'll check that out on the way out. They like to hide treasures behind you, partly because you go back up this way, but also because a lot of people don't tend to check on the corners. And having reclaimed his head, in the end, all the silliness finishes. The Zabarbans lose patience, and they decide to kill them. Now, the 2 young fellows are quite clever, and they know about this, and they also know the 2 seers that the Zabarbans will go to consult to see what to do with the bodies of these 2 guys. So what they do is they tell the seers to tell the Zabarbans, when they ask them, that these 2 boys' bodies should be powdered up and thrown in the river, not burned or anything else. So the 2 boys are killed. Here's a jump. This is why you literally can't get over this unless you take the bike, which is partly why they... Hey, is there a treasure here as well? Just to check. Nope. Over we go. The camera is a little bit unhappy. That's a treasure. You can see here, this, you remember the... If you can cast your mind back 2 years ago, this is the pattern that appears whenever you can use Thor's gauntlets. A yarn graper, which actually means, I think, iron grip, to pull them around. And what we're looking for here, by the way, is we're looking for Thor's belt, Megingjord. So he had three bits of kit. He had Mjolnir, Megingjord, and Yarngraper. The gauntlets were essential. He couldn't handle the hammer without the gauntlets. Megingjord doubled his strength. And, well, the hammer was great. You could throw it would always come back to you. Hide it was really tiny. But anyway, so when the Zabarbans killed the 2 young fellows... Well, actually, they didn't kill them. What they did is they instructed them to jump through a fire. And the fellows realised that this would obviously kill them, so they simply said, well, bugger it, we're not going to jump through it, we're just going to throw ourselves into it. And... Lara's now going to monologue to camera rather than talk to Zip and
The
Alistair.
Midgard serpent Jormungandr that lies on the bottom of the ocean, encircling all the world. Coming of Ragnarok. Jormungandr thrashes beneath the sea, flooding the land and vomiting its deadly poison into the air. The final battle of the gods. Thor kills Jormungandr with his hammer, Mjolnir, but then he retreats only 9 steps before he succumbs to the serpent's venom.
I like the idea that Thor had a specific number of steps that he could travel before he was finally fell victim to Jormungandr's venom, which is named Ita. But anyway, that's a story for another bit. So now we're back in the Proto-Norse architecture with the big lumpy bits and this kind of huge vaulted ceilings with the vaulted. And their bones are scattered in the water, and then the 2 boys reconstitute themselves somehow. I mean, the whole story is full of incomprehensible acts of divine whatever.
Midgard's servant. All these ancient sites inspired underworld myths in later cultures. Perhaps because they were all protected by the Walking Dead.
A goblet of Soma. I was afraid this is Amrita before, but wait. These trolls are very vulnerable to being kicked in the face. Kung Fu! Our only weakness is Kung Fu. Dun-dun-dun. Anyway. You can also... There are a bunch of ways to deal with trolls. You can just spam kicks at them and shoot them. You can throw bombs on them, you can headshot them. And then you stop them after they're dead. I'm going to switch my weapons here because... there's a good reason to use a shotgun on them because it's more fun. There we go. Yes, I was referring to this stuff as Amrita, but it was probably Soma as well. Soma and Amrita are pretty similar. Amrita is a very similar word to ambrosia, a similar Proto-European root, Indo-European root. And the... it's a shotgun. You can tell this is another movable section. When we go here, we can hear the dingling of a treasure. So there are treasures underneath this that you have to get after you've got the gauntlet. A zombie! Zombie gets kicked back where he came from. Despite emerging from it, that kills him. These goblets are probably Soma, and Soma is this mysterious substance that turns up a lot in early Vedic mythology. More zombies are going to appear. Which grants eternal life. It's what makes Indra, the king of the gods, so strong, is all this Soma. And there's lots of reference to humans having it as well in this stuff. There's a lot of debate about what it actually was, because there's an argument that it was... Okay, so let's stick a bomb to you. Okay. Stuck a bomb to many games, me. This fella I'm going to handle it in a more interesting way. Headshot with the shotgun. You don't just stop them after you do that, which is nice. Anyway. So this Soma stuff was probably... Well, there's lots of arguments about what it actually was. It could have been fly agaric. It could have been psilocybin mushrooms, according to some people. It might have been a plant from the genus Ephedra, which produces a mild stimulant, because it was meant to be quite stimulating. These jaws, by the way, you can see there's a ring at the bottom. You can open them by pulling the ring, or you can close them by pulling on the head. That's quite how this works, but, you know, whatever. This blue stuff is Ita. And Ita is interesting in Norse mythology because it's both the source of all life, because famously at the beginning the frost giants emerged from Ita, but it's also produced as a poison. For example, Jormungandr is meant to produce Ita in his mouth. And what's nice about this is that Ita in German and Dutch means pus. It's a river of pus in Zimbabwe. I mean, it's probably pure coincidence. It is quite nice, the little sort of thematic references that turn up. I'm going to jump back across this side. Well, I didn't finish the story of the Wonder Twins. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they get back to the Zimbabweans and basically kill them all. It's all very wonderful. this stuff crumbles. This is to prevent you from getting right back up easily. There we go. Now for some strange rafters and beams here for no particular good reason. Because this is Lara, she's obviously going to do gymnastics on them. And then die, because I forgot that if you do that too much you lose balance. So yes, they came back to the Zabalbans, Expalanque and Hulampu, pretending to be completely different people who could raise people from the dead. And so they showed them that they resurrected a dog, and that was very wonderful for them. And this dog is specified as being so happy that its tail was wagging madly when they resurrected it. And then they resurrect each other after sacrificing each other. And the Zabalbans are so impressed by this, they say, well, why didn't you do that to us? Kill us then resurrect us. We think that sounds like a really great idea. And they kill Hun Kame and Yuko Kame and don't resurrect them. And that's it. The end of the Zabalbans. And they pretty much do a "you lot are seriously done" speech for the remainder. Oh, he got knocked off by a shotgun blast. Excellent. And that's how the Zabalbans ended up the way they did. The two twins, Expalanque, it sounds ridiculous, and Hunapu ended up becoming divine. They ascended fully. And their two brothers, they turned into monkeys. Ooh. I would not do this. Ended up becoming these Muse characters. I fear my hard drive space is running out, so what I might have to do is end this set here. Anyway, I'm going to do the next set relatively soon. Good night and good luck.